So we just got here to the Rosie the Riveter National Historical Park, and we're getting ready to go inside. So when you do come here, when you're on Harbor Boulevard, you're going to actually turn into where you see a kiosk, come all the way to the end, make a right and go all the way to the end again, and the building is hidden in the back of all these warehouses. Either way, we're getting ready to head on in. We're going to learn quite a bit here about Rosie the Riveter and the World War II home front. There's a lot of information to cover, so I'm not going to waste any time, and I'll try to provide as much as I can, just to spark your imagination, because this is one place that you definitely want to come and enjoy. There's a lot of movies that they offer, a lot of very knowledgeable park rangers on the subject. It's really a fantastic little place if you're interested in the World War II effort. The little museum has 3 levels. The downstairs is where you're going to see your movies, and they have classrooms. The second floor, they have the gift shops, and they have some information also. And then the top floor is where they have a lot of really, really nice exhibits. Well, let's talk about women in the workforce. That was Rosie the Riveter and Wendy the Welder. Many female workers were riveters, and the Rosie the Riveter icon and song were a central part of the campaign to recruit women and persuade men to accept them. Some 6 million women entered the U.S. workforce during the war. While many needed no urging to aid the war effort, the government actively recruited them, first targeting single white women. The appeal later extended to married women, then minority women. Many people, including women, had to overcome Depression-era attitudes about women taking jobs from men and about married women working at all. Though women across the social spectrum worked during the war, minorities and working-class women, many of whom had always worked, made up half of those who entered the defense workforce. As they performed tasks that had always been done by men, women met with condensation, unequal pay, and harassment. Gradually they were accepted, especially as they proved themselves at least as skilled as men at a number of tasks. Defense jobs were often non-industrial. Many were clerical, and women Air Force service pilots ferried planes and towed training targets. Women worked in non-defense jobs formerly, reserved for men: bus drivers, journalists, lab technicians, agricultural workers in the Women's Land Army. And by 1944, women made up almost a third of the workforce. After the war, they were urged to give up their jobs to returning veterans. Though many lost what they had gained, women had clearly proven that they can do men's work. How did Richmond become a wartime shipbuilding center? Its rail and deepwater connections made it a natural site for Henry Kaiser shipyards and over 50 other war-related industries. The shipyards were born of the 1940 Emergency Shipbuilding Program, which called for a new shipyard in Richmond to build 30 cargo ships to help replace those Britain had lost to German U-boats. Within 2 years, Kaiser, new to shipbuilding but experienced in large industrial enterprises, had built a complex of 4 yards. During the war, the government commissioned over 3,200 Liberty and Victory ships for the expanded U.S. cargo fleet and the Lend-Lease program. These types accounted for most of the 747 ships launched in Richmond, more than any other yard in the country. Kaiser's success was due in great part to innovative prefabricated assembly methods. These methods also allowed inexperienced workers to do small repetitive tasks like simple welding, which sped construction and opened up more jobs for new workers, especially women. Veterans in the skilled shipbuilding trades resisted this de-skilling of tasks and the hiring of inexperienced workers. But the Kaiser yards were among the earliest to employ women, and by 1944 they made up 41% of welders. As outsiders of different backgrounds arrived, racism and cultural differences, which caused problems at the yards. Despite the tensions, 10,000 African Americans eventually worked here, along with smaller numbers of Hispanics, Asian Americans, and American Indians. Making a new life. The wartime migrations of workers to the industrial centers affected many cities, but Richmond was particularly hit hard. At its peak, 90,000 people worked in the shipyards, quadrupling its size. The exploding population overwhelmed the city's transportation, housing, education, and public health and safety services. Though Richmond and the shipyards alleviated some of the problems, Kaiser Permanente Health Plan offered health care to workers, an on-site first aid stations, and a local field hospital. A Richmond Federal Kaiser partnership provided workers with housing and child care centers, but housing remained in short supply, forcing workers to come up with their own solutions. Railroad cars, cobbled together, shacks, trailers, some took turns sleeping in hot beds, used around the clock. African Americans and other minorities lived in either poor quality segregated housing. Long public transportation rides, food shortages, and racial issues persisted, but Richmond and its diverse population coped. They made it work. At this time, there was a lot of help from the home front. With the Allies suffering early defeats on the battlefield, Americans quickly understood the magnitude of the situation and were willing to share the sacrifices made by those who fought. "There's a war to be won," was the common response to those who shirked. People saved fats for use in explosives, held salvaging and recycling drives, bought war bonds, they planted victory gardens and canned foods. They volunteered for the Civil Defense Corps and endured gas and tire rationing shortages and blackouts. A lot of the popular songs that caught on were songs like Boogie Woogie, Bugle Boy, Jump, I'll Walk Alone, and I'll Be Seeing You, evoking the sadness of separation to when the lights go on again, expressing everyone's wistful yearning for the war's end. Richmond today, visiting the park, a good place to start is the Visitor Education Center, where you can view exhibits and a short film. It is open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. year-round, except Thanksgiving and December 25th and January 1st. The Rosie the Riveter Memorial in Marina Bay Park is open year-round, dawn to dusk, as are other city parks within the national park boundary. Here you can visit historic buildings like the Ford Assembly Building, converted in wartime to a tank depot where military vehicles were equipped before shipment. You can take a tour of the city's historic World War II sites and structures, take a self-guided auto tour, or walk the Bay Trail with its historic markers and fantastic views. See the park websites for maps, directions, tour schedules, and information on events and programs. The Visitor Center and Rosie the Riveter Memorial are fully accessible, as are other city parks within the park boundary. Service animals are welcome. Here you can also visit the SS Red Oak Victory ship. It's moored at Shipyard number 3. It was built in Richmond in 1944, and the ship carried supplies and troops to the Pacific Theater of War. The Rosie the Riveter Memorial, the memorial on the site of a shipyard number 2 building slip, evokes the yard's celebrated shipbuilding techniques. The main sculpture of a hull under construction and the keel walk to water's edge includes images and memories of the women who worked here. Okay, coming up, you're going to see some excerpts from one of the movies that we were watching, and it's really interesting if you want to hang around for that. It's coming up right now.
One and two were particularly festive occasions. They got famous people from all over the country. Ship would go sliding down the ways right after the champagne was cracked over the bow. Very ceremonial.
It was a patriotic time. You'd see the kids collecting newspapers, collecting tinfoil, collecting anything. Women, they gave up all their girdles, all their underwear that had elastic. It really was the most wonderful time of coming together of the American people that I have ever lived through.
Shipyards closed and some balloon burst and Richmond was depopulated. It really continued to be a thriving community.
Today, I think you have waves of newcomers who have that kind of vibrancy that those newcomers during the wartime had. Richmond, it was called the city that won the Purple Heart because of the amount of change and crowding in the war effort and turning out those ships in record numbers. Something happened in the small town of Richmond that people should be very proud of.
I was very proud of myself that I worked in the shipyards. Proud of myself because I thought we were doing something for the war effort.
From that point on, I always thought, I can do anything I want to do. If I set my mind to it, I can do anything. And that's how I've lived the rest of my life.
This was the place to be. What sticks with me the most was how wonderful everybody was to each other. Very patriotic and pulling together, and it was just a good time.
That's what makes the story so interesting, that these were ordinary people who did extraordinary things.
Anyway, this place was really fascinating. It's just a few minutes off of Highway 580 right before you cross the San Rafael Bridge into Marin County. Anyway, you've been road trekking with Rowan Lowe. I hope you enjoyed my segment on the Rosie the Riveter National Historical Monument Park. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up and please do subscribe. That way you'll be notified when I place new content. Thank you for joining me and have a great day.